Now, I thought I might have talked about this, but from the looks of my channel, I haven't, and if I have, then let's talk about it again. But today, I wanted to talk about the Megazords. Now, they've always been an important part of Power Rangers, but what if the Power Rangers reboot, whenever that decides to drop? Now, in Super Sentai, it's important to have the Robos. They know how to do it, they know how to look really, really cool and film fantastic scenes. And Simon Bennett mentioned that filming Megazord footage is actually really expensive when we have the Megazords and they're its own thing. But when they're not using Super Sentai footage at all, like whatsoever, are we going to have the concept of Megazords moving forward, or is it just going to be all action with the Ranger suits and we don't see Megazords whatsoever? Now, there is an argument that has been going around. Hasbro needs to make Megazord toys because it's important. That's where the money is. The money is in the Megazords. But it's not really, is it? Not anymore. Like, it's completely moved on. Hasbro haven't really made many Megazords. They haven't really kind of put in a lot to when you had Cosmic Fury. You had one Megazord where, yeah, you had a couple in the series, and yet they never really focused on it. Especially when a brand new season starts, you always have the Megazords front and center straight away. But yet Hasbro, when it came to Dino Fury, I'm pretty much sure that they dropped them a lot later on rather than have them on day one. And when you look back at Beast Morphers, you didn't have the Lion King Megazord, did you? So I don't think that Megazords are a huge priority to Hasbro. Now, even if they did, would they actually put more effort into these toys, or would they just make a basic version? The Cosmic Fury Megazord is pretty much a very basic version of what it could have been. They just didn't care about it. You know this, I know this, so I don't think many people are going to argue with that. With Playmates having the license now to kind of like their third party effectively, you know, could they make the robots for the reboot? It's an interesting thing because maybe we get something, maybe we don't. I don't know, like, I'm interested to see how they're going to tackle this, but they may just go, no, we're not making anything for this, just you're going to have to deal with it. But let's say that there are no Megazords, would it affect the show in any sort of way? Part of me thinks it would be okay not to actually have them in the show, and that everything else is just extended fighting. One of the main things is we saw a little bit about this when it was in Dino Fury, because they lowered down the amount of footage used for Megazord fights. It was something kind of really weird when seeing that, because I generally thought that it would have ample enough time. Every single episode would have a Megazord fight, but at times they didn't even have it whatsoever. I did generally think that they were just going to stop using it because either they didn't know what to do or that it didn't kind of hold with the story. But then it kind of maybe caught up a little bit later because people complained. They wanted to see Megazords. So maybe later on we got a little bit more, who knows. But I feel like they were trying to kind of wean us off Megazord fights because, you know, they don't like toy sales. I don't know why. Now, if they stop using Megazords, I really don't think it would impact the reboot that much. Because I also think that with it being all original footage and it being expensive day in, day out to make this sort of footage, and I don't think that they would throw in like shitty CGI. I generally think that they'll just kind of skip it because maybe they think it's not important to the actual whole storyline. Not unless they go back and redesign the MMPR Megazord. Now we're thinking about this, if we did have the reboot and it didn't have any Megazord footage, I think it would be a lot harder for people to adjust because since day one, we've always had a Megazord in one way or another. I do think that if you take out this one element of no Megazords, then you could tell more of a story, kind of focus on the length of more fighting, kind of add more plot to it. With it being really expensive, are they going to put a lot of money into this? Considering, I think also maybe it might not fit their kind of thought process on this. Is it completely going to work with how the story is telling, the way that it's shot? Or is it just going to look really cheesy if they don't have actual suits made and designated cities that they could roam around in and destroy if need be? I also kind of get the feeling that maybe they don't want to put it in. Again, maybe it doesn't fit with the story. Maybe it just doesn't kind of fit within their idealness, like their kind of thoughts Look at how Power Rangers was in the 2017. The director didn't want to have a Megazord in it. He'd have the Zords, but last minute they put the Zords together to form whatever to bring it in, and yeah, they just weren't going to combine them. They weren't going to do anything. So if you think about it like that, is this going to work? Now, I want to kind of bring attention to a really old Sentai. God, saying really old Sentai is weird, but Akiba Ranger, probably said that wrong. But there's a scene where I found it really funny that you have the Red Ranger thinking like they're going to get a Megazord like scene, but it never happens. They blow up the monster. They sit around for ages watching the sun go down, thinking that the monster is going to jump up and become giant and they're going to call their space robos and stuff. But it never really happened, and I found it quite funny. So I imagine something like that they could put in and throw a joke in or two or something. But yeah, it's definitely worth a think of it. It's definitely worth a thought of it. Now, part of me is a 50-50 on this one because I generally would like to see something without a Megazord. I want to see how they would adapt because it's something a little bit different. But with this also being all original, I'm kind of curious to know how they would do it, how they would put in Megazords. Would they build their own? Would they do it all CGI? Who knows? That to me is something that I'm kind of curious on myself. But anyway, I am going to leave it there. What are your thoughts? Do you think having a Megazord or at least Zords in the new reboot would need to be 100%, you can't say no to it, it has to be in there? Or are you on the fence of, hey, I want to see what it would be like without the Zords? I think it's a generally really kind of cool thing to talk about. I would love to know your opinion. Let me know down below in the comments. Thank you very much for listening and watching. Check out the merch as it helps the channel, and why not check out the Patreon as well as the channel memberships. Thank you very much for listening and watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. I want to say a big thank you to all my Patreon supporters, and I wanted to shout out Kimono Cat, Kura Stanada. Your help goes a long way to help support the channel, and if you want to help support the channel, the links to my Patreon and channel memberships are listed below in the description.
あらあら、チャンネルをサポートしてくれてありがとうございます。チャンネル登録、高評価お願いします。以下のリンクから商品を入手することができます。